What is up, Raider Nation? It's bigz here. Uh, how you guys doing? Are you alive? Hopefully we have more alive people than dead people from the Sunday debacle down at Los Angeles Chargers land. Yeah, it is what it is. We Anybody who didn't kind of imagine what happening, I don't know what to tell you. It was kind of, I mean, I thought that they were going to go win, but the way that they lost was absolutely not a surprise to me. Raiderdamus is here with me, so we can get the show started. Let me hit this button and let's get the fuck going. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome, Tyler. You are here with me.
Yeah.
No slides for the Hall of Shade today. I'm just gonna let you cook, but
Okay.
we do have the post-mortem to do. Um,
Yeah.
so 0-17.
Oh, undoubtedly.
It's
Undoubtedly.
kind of what it's looking like.
And still, even if we're 0-17, the Panthers and Giants will get the first and second overall picks.
Correct, because whatever tiebreaker there is, we're gonna
Mhm.
somehow luck into losing that or winning it, whatever. All right, so some initial. If you guys missed it, the Raiders lost to the Chargers on Sunday, 22-10. It was not cool. It was a tale of two halves, really. Defensively, on the defensive side, the one encouraging the bright spot, if you will, of the entire game was the way the defense played in the first half. They allowed 3 and 3 points in the first two quarters. They allowed only a field goal in the third quarter, and then they allowed 13 points in the fourth quarter. And at one point, I said, the Chargers are going to come back and win this game because the Raiders can't stay on the field on offense long enough. This defense is going to be completely gassed by the end of the game, and the Chargers are just going to keep pounding the ball, run it down their throats. And guess what happened? That's exactly what happened. So they did hold Justin Herbert in check, 17 of 26 for only 144 yards. He was dumping off a bunch. He had an average 5.5 yards per catch. Did throw a touchdown. His QBR was 31.5, which was just slightly above Gardner Minshew's. Gardner Minshew had a higher rating, but a lower QBR. Minshew's line 25 of 33, 257, one touchdown, one interception. He was sacked 4 times on 32. Was that 32 pressures? Good Lord. Or no, for 32 yards. That's got to be what that means.
32 pressures would be really something special.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it felt like. and
Yeah, no kidding.
one touchdown, one interception, one just egregious fumble. That
It
cannot
looked
be.
it looked like what Tom Brady's tuck rule would have looked like if there wasn't any snow.
Or yeah, other people around him. He was fucking by himself. I've never seen a play like that, and you have to imagine that that's not something that Luke Getzey or Antonio Pierce expected to happen as they were handing him the job.
I mean, I haven't even seen that in Madden, one of those glitch compilations.
No,
That play is
no.
not in Tecmo Bowl. It's nowhere to be found. I'm pretty sure it's not in Getsy's playbook, as dumb as some of the plays that are in there are. That one is not. It is missing.
Right. Yeah. Throw the ball backwards to nobody. Is not something, not what Getzey had in mind. Raph is here. What's up, Raph? We are just
Hello.
talking about this shit show, horse shit of a game. On the ground, the Raiders rushed for less than 100 yards. They averaged 3.2 yards per carry. That's not getting it done. Zamir White didn't have a terrible. I mean, he didn't have a good game by any measure, but he didn't do that bad. I mean, he was better than Gus Edwards. And except for the fumble was pretty bad, and that's in the good old thumbnail over here on YouTube. God, I can't. What's wrong with my camera? Get over here. So the fumbles in the thumbnail, because that was probably the big turning point in the game. On paper, Gardner Minshew's stat line didn't look bad. It was just the way that the game unfolded that he's not the answer. And maybe Aiden O'Connell isn't the answer. So we have no answer. But Gardner Minshew, especially with the defense playing the way that it did, and the Chargers being as ineffectual as they were in the first 45 minutes of the game, and him not being able to do anything about it, he's not the answer either. So let's get out of this game recap, and let's talk about the state of the nation. Okay, so moving forward, Raiderdamus, what are you seeing? We go into Baltimore on Sunday. What changes do you think are going to be made?
It's hard to say, and it's hard to see any changes being made, honestly, because the team is still learning this system. What changes can you tangibly make if your team does not have a mastery of what they're already trying to do? I mean, this was clearly a team in flux. This was clearly a rudderless team. I mean, the worst thing you can be in life is stupid, and the second worst thing you can be in life is cursed. And the Raiders right now are both. So I don't know what changes they can possibly make other than to tackle better, but that's a matter of technique. That's not a schematic change. There was nothing wrong with the Raiders schematically on defense on Sunday. There was plenty wrong with them schematically on offense, because the good teams in this league extend drives. They get first downs and they get points on as many drives as possible. What they don't do is run a dive play into 5 guys on fourth down twice in a row and make stupid decisions. You can't do that in the NFL. It's too difficult of a league. You have to be a little smart about that, a little more conservative about that. And we can yell about conservative play all the time, but, going for it on fourth down and not having success will make people shut up about conservative play real freaking quickly. I think the Raiders need to take more deep shots. The Baltimore does have an excellent secondary. I am very concerned about their safety, Harrison. He's an absolute monster. I think in a few more years, he could very well have the interception record for the league. I think he could eclipse the great Paul Krause later on in his career. He is that good of a player. The Raiders need to stay as far away from him as humanly possible. But the Ravens do have a pretty good defensive line. It'll be difficult for the Raiders to move the ball consistently. If it was difficult for them to do so against the Chargers, it's most certainly going to be difficult for them to do against the Ravens, especially in an East Coast early game where the Raiders never have any success. I don't see a whole lot of changes they can make in this short amount of time to make any tangible difference in the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just looking into the kind of team stats. The Raiders had 225 yards passing to the Chargers 140. That was kind of by necessity because they couldn't get anything going on the ground. They did have 14 first downs to the Chargers, 11 first downs. 12 of those were passing. They only had 1 rushing first down, which is absolutely atrocious. They were in the red zone one time. They allowed the Chargers into the red zone 4 times. The big story was the turnovers. They allowed 3 and did not force any on the Chargers side. So typical Harbaugh ball, do as little as possible to ensure victory and just protect the ball. And that's basically what they did. They both had 13 drives each. the Raiders they had possession of the ball for 3 more minutes than the Chargers did, even though they had those 3 turnovers. Yeah, it just like there was nothing good about the game except for the defensive play in the first half. Into halftime up 7-6 seemed very, very Raiders. Um, what are you seeing, Raph?
I mean, I really want to expect it about this because I had laid down we're going to be like an upset. I mean, after we just saw for that performance between Raiders versus Chargers and Justin Herbert only passed 144 yards, I mean, we could have won this game, but we did it. I mean, now we're going against a like much better quarterbacking team. I mean, at a certain point they say, "Oh, we just wanted to screw it up." But I mean, between for the Raiders defense, I mean, they're just like the highest level as one for the Chargers. I mean, they believe that to go for the top 5, but if we really want to cook it out about for the quarterback, the wide receiver, the running back, because after we just saw Alexander Madison, I mean, Alexander Madison was doubly great. But when we need to take care about like the improvisation, about for the playbook, and of course the vision of Samir White, because Samir White he didn't get like the 100%. But I know that it can be drunk and high enough or like getting over the still cover like 100 screens, but they know they're more likely the outcome. I mean, they need just like a heck of a more talent if they need to intend to compete because we just really know about for the body language and of course for the knowledge of AP. After the last season, the coach and get some experience. But reality of the situation because he's still like at the first time because there's had to go through growing some pains. I mean, the defenses play well for the most part. It was like a couple of the big plays that really deflate momentum. I mean, they need to like actually learn for their loss if they are really serious about for the win as they are. Because if the team's gonna be like a really shape, there's like there's no time to hit the panic button this season because I know that it came barely involved about like to recover like at a hard loss against the Chargers.
I Going into Baltimore, I think we need to target Devonte Adams more than 6 times. He needs to be the offense needs to be schemed around him. I know that the Chargers pass rush was affecting Gardner Minshew, and he's not the best decision maker, but he only had 6 targets, 5 catches. Jacoby Myers only targeted 3 times. Uh, I mean, when you have running backs out targeting a wide receiver, um, you're doing something wrong, and they gotta clean up the turnovers. Um,
I do want to say something about the upcoming game against Baltimore. The Chiefs were able to put pressure on the quarterback pretty consistently with their defensive line. The Ravens are very weak, uncharacteristically for them, on the interior of their offensive line. They're shuffling in rookies and guys who don't have a whole lot of experience under their belts. So I think if the Raiders can put pressure on Lamar Jackson, keep him contained if that were even humanly possible, and force a couple of turnovers, they do have a fighting chance in this game. And just looking up their schedule beyond this, Browns, trash. Panthers, trash. Bengals, trash. Falcons, trash. There are so many teams whose fan bases are worse off than we are right now because these teams actually had expectations. What we saw from our team is exactly what we saw during preseason and training camp, which is an elite god-tier defense with an offense that yet can't find its own ass with an Atlas and team of native trackers. I mean, they have no idea what they're doing right now. And that's going to get better over time. It's not going to get worse. It can only go up from here. I don't have a lot of faith in the Raiders right now. I will always have a lot of love for the Raiders, but I don't trust them. I don't believe in them. I have no faith in them. But what I do know intellectually is that these people are going to go to practice every single day while I'm sitting here at home, and they're going to learn the system and get better and better and better and have more mastery of it. And that can only get better because the opponents that they're facing down the road showed us in week 1 they're just as bad, if not worse, than we are. A lot of them came in with massive expectations and absolutely fell flat on their faces. So the Raiders are not going to go 0-17 like we were joking about earlier.
Of course.
You know, if they win 7-8 games, it'll be a minor victory. And the best thing that happened to the Raiders over the weekend was Quinn Ewers had a really, really good game for Texas. So that's another guy we can look at for the mock drafts in the offseason, because that's the only thing we need to be looking forward to.
So let's talk about the quarterback situation. I kind of went into a media blackout as soon as the game was over. I didn't even finish the game. I didn't get to. I wasn't pleasured by seeing the brawl until today when I started doing show prep. I just cut everything off about mid fourth quarter and just said, okay, I'm washing my hands of this for the next couple days. Focused on the other games that were going on and the Monday Night Football and the other things that are in my life. And I also didn't watch any of the press conferences, which is normally something that I really do. Was there any has the drumbeat for pulling Gardner Minshew in favor of Aiden O'Connell, has that started yet? Did they ask Antonio about that in the press conference at all? How long he thinks that Gardner Minshew is going to keep the job? Was that ever brought up?
I have no idea, because I'm the same as you. As soon as the first half was over, I shut everything down. I played video games all day yesterday and all day today because it pissed me off so much. I didn't want to have anything whatsoever to do with it. So I have no idea.
Were you playing Star Wars Outlaws or Quidditch? I
was playing MLB The Show and the new college football game and some Zenless Zone Zero. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Did you hear anything, Raph? Have they started talking about making the change yet? You're muted still, buddy.
Yeah, not very quiet yet, but I know it's very easy to look better than this, but thinking about like the 50-50 plays that didn't go for that way, for the decision that should not repeat it. I mean, number one, they're just like at a bad spot at a Tucker Cash. Number two, there's going up for it like 41 for 40. They gave it like a 3 points, but also they just had like the missing field goal. It's a mere fumble. I mean, punting into a 41 for the 35. I mean, who knows about it? I mean, that should have not happening where they have the backups for the minimum, like 16-10 going to the fourth. I mean, the defense along with the Gardner Minshew and when would have like off the field or at least like another 6-7 minutes. Not hitting the panic button, but extremely frustrating to give like it away. I mean, they just couldn't like a phantom call, but when Boston just David Minshew just feel like at the very tripping him with his shirt down because that was like a fluke. Because I'm not very sure why Antonio Pierce didn't challenge the Tucker spot. And what makes even worse, because he didn't even try to dive down the field towards like the end of the second and 30 seconds with 3 timeouts. I mean,
right.
Not challenging about for the Tucker spot was it a move, but they just look at it had for like 2 yards. I mean, he was creating like the zone pressure or running like the defender at the pressure. I mean, he thinks he's more mobile than it truly is.
I do agree, and you can kind of look at it in one of two ways. Either he doesn't know what to do to try and go out and actually win a game as a head coach, and he's learning too, or he wasn't trying to, right? I didn't understand a lot of the decision making that was happening throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
The mistakes were bad, but yeah, the lack of aggressiveness on Antonio Pierce's part was kind of alarming. Like, take chances.
And when he was aggressive, it didn't fucking work. He ran up the middle twice and got nothing. If those had worked, we might be singing a different tune right now.
My girl Wendy Early checking in on all the shows. What's up? Yeah, and
Probably.
I do that Bosa play made me very angry just because a shoe top sack, like, come on. he's supposed to be mobile. He's supposed to be able to extend the plays and move the pocket and all that stuff.
Derek
And,
Carr would have been faster than that. He would have been broken down to that tackle.
Yeah, and there were some plays where like he could have in fourth and one, right? They run Zamir White right up into the heart of the stacked box, bootleg out. There was a play where like he absolutely had the edge and he didn't go for it. It was just like
didn't we aren't we of the opinion here and are supposedly informed that Gardner Minshew got the jobs at least partly because of his mobility over Aiden O'Connell, who has feet of cement, and yet in this game we saw absolutely none of that. We saw sluggish Gardner Minshew, who my aged and dead grandmother is faster than, do absolutely nothing to get outside the pocket and make plays. And when he did, he went directly out of bounds and didn't even try.
Yeah, and he wasn't trying to push the ball down the field. He did have, I mean, Jacoby Myers averaged 20.3 yards per catch, but he had a 33 yard catch. But it didn't look like he was trying to push the ball down the field. The one surprising thing was Minshew's accuracy. He was 25 of 33. He only missed 8 throws, but it was a game where he should have had 45 and not 33. They couldn't get the job done in the right situations, and that Baltimore defense is not gonna. They're not going to be quite as forgiving as the Chargers, and the offense isn't going to be held in check the same way either. Derrick Henry and Justice Hill, as kind of like a thunder and lightning offense, especially with Lamar Jackson and having to account for him. I mean, it's going to be sad. It's going to be sad. They're gonna need to focus on cutting down that run, and then Lamar opens it up. All right. Now, Wendy said, "I'm not even a Raiders fan, but that was painful." Yeah. Yeah.
About that.
It's hard to get over. We have a new segment. It's actually an old segment. It's the same segment. But let's get to the Slayers of the Week. And I made a new addition to the Slayers of the Week, and we'll talk about that in a second. All right, so I got tiles here, and we're going to do the Slayers of the Week. I did make slides for me and for Raiderdamus. Raph, I apologize, but I will let you add on as we get to it. So let's start with Raiderdamus' Slayer of the Week, and that is Alexander Madison.
All right, well, when we signed Alexander Madison, we did so with the understanding that he is best as the number 2 option, not the guy to be the bell cow running back of your offense, the guy who is best with a handful of touches, maybe close to a dozen. But when Alexander Madison got the ball for the Raiders in this particular game, he was incredibly effective. He scored the Raiders' first touchdown on a screen pass in which he hurdled the defender and scampered into the end zone. It's very exciting. We actually had hope for the Raiders at that point. But him being the not bell cow back, which Zamir White is supposed to be, and being effective at exactly what we thought he would be effective at, is incredibly promising. It's just the Raiders should have continued to go with the screen game because it was effective. Unfortunately, the Raiders, once they find something that's effective, immediately abandon it because that's just how they work. But Alexander Madison showed me he can be effective in limited touches. He ran hard. He caught the ball well. He was one of the best players on offense for the Raiders in this game, and I'm looking forward to more of him as the season goes along.
Yeah, I liked what I saw from him. He did exactly what he should do. His line, 5 rushes, 19 yards, 3.8 yards per carry, 4 catches on 6 targets, 43 yards. So basically, he had 60-something total yards. He had that touchdown. His longest play was a catch for 31 yards. That's about the usage that we need to expect from Alexander Madison. Zamir White's line, he did have 2 targets. if I'm not mistaken. He caught both of the passes, but both of them were pretty well covered. 2 targets, 2 catches, 2 total yards. He had two 1-yard receptions, and he ran the ball 13 times for 44 yards. 3.4 yards per carry, which is essentially what Alexander Madison did. Although one of them was a 12-yard run, which was longer than Madison's longest. So Zamir White is going to be effective when he runs the ball 20 times a game, 25 times a game, not 13. So something is wrong in the way that the Raiders schemed. And maybe it was specifically a scheme for handling the Chargers, but yeah, Alexander Madison is your Slayer of the Week. Mine is Mr. Brock Bowers. As you can tell from the headline, he ate my pizza. That's why he's so good. And he led all receivers with 8 targets. He had 6 catches, also leading all receivers. 58 yards, which was third behind Jacoby Myers 61 and Devontae Adams 59. And he had a long catch of 26. Didn't get it into the end zone, but he definitely showed that being the target leader in this offense, he's a safety valve for Minshew. He's definitely in the Raiders' plans. They're definitely going to be throwing the ball to him. They had a total of 11 tight end targets, which is more than Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams combined. It was 12 for the top three wide receivers, 11 for the 2 tight ends, and another 8 for the running back. So, I mean, they were trying. They were trying. They weren't able to move the ball at all on the ground. But I guess against this Chargers defense, that was kind of to be expected. So you can kind of see what their scheme was. It wasn't effective. Do you have a player of the game there, Raf?
I mean, for Alexander Madison, I mean, I agree with Raiderdamus. I mean, he has played enough that they really shouldn't know because he has a great day. I mean, and they're going to expect it to take over like the backfield or something happens to Zamir White. I mean, they just wanted to benefit some wide open running lanes because he's just like looked like it a lost step of post kills where it isn't surprising, but it's not gonna get a Burry that adopted a Jeff. I mean, it's gonna be like the answer, but they don't want it to go to the way to see it like the next big thing. I mean, this guy they have a great cardio, they have the great opportunity to working it out. I mean, even Samir White wasn't even getting pulled up off of the station, and of course White by the wide open. I mean, they just became like very clear that Alexander Madison, he really working it out because he's just building at the better because I know he's really worth it. I mean, he can be like a very substitute to be Samir White, but I know it's gonna be like not being like a really exactly how to go for it. I mean, Alexander Madison became like really good part because that's where the only really connects.
Yeah, I don't want to rehash it, but I do want to stress Alexander Madison had an opportunity that he took advantage of, but running the ball, he really didn't do anything beyond what Zamir White did, except for not fumbling. But he also didn't have quite as many chances to do that as Zamir. And I know that they work on carrying the ball correctly because you can see in this picture that Brock Bowers is doing exactly that. You put your hand on top of the ball on the end of it, and you tuck it under your chin. And Brock Bowers is doing that. Zamir White was in the process of that when the ball got punched out. But that leads us to the next segment, which is it's kind of the backpack for the Slayers of the Week, and it is Walk the Plank. Q Slayer. Raiderdamus's candidate to walk the plank is the aforementioned Zamir White. Talk to us about what you saw from Zamir.
Well, Zamir White is in this particular category more so for his fantasy shortcomings this week than for anything he actually did on the field. because the play calling, I think, was a little bit suspect when he got the ball, particularly in those short yardage situations. Those plays where you just run into a horde of giant men. It's just simply not going to work. But I've touted Zamir White for months as an early round draft pick in fantasy leagues, and he did not live up to that.
Right.
He was so bad in my best ball league, he didn't even register points. I mean, the points were there. He just wasn't as good as my other guys, which I did not expect from him. I expected him to be a lot better than that. And when he did actually get the ball and have a very nice run, he dropped the ball and fumbled it and killed the Raiders' drive and led to points for the Chargers, completely turned the game around.
Yeah.
Zamir White should be more dependable than that. He should be more reliable than that. When we hand the ball to Zamir White, we shouldn't worry about what happens, because that's the reason Alexander Mattison is not a number one running back, is because when you hand the ball to him, you worry about what might happen. Zamir White should be a guy that you have complete and utter trust in, and so far we can't have that just because of what he's shown to us. I'm hoping as the year goes along that he showed that this week was a fluke and that he turns into an absolute Belcon number one back, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, and I will say that, yes, one game is a small sample size, and one fumble should not erase what he did in the 4 games to finish out last season. We also have Jackson Powers Johnson coming back at some point. They're gonna gel at some point. There are better days ahead for Zamir White, and if you drafted him at his RB 32 ADP, you are still going to get performance above and beyond that. I'm not worried about Zamir White, but as far as week 1 goes, get on that plank, buddy.
Well, if the Raiders ever get to the goal line on offense, maybe we'll see who the goal line back for the Raiders is, but I suspect it will be Zamir White.
That's what Antonio Pierce said all offseason. It's going to run through Zamir White. He's a different guy than he was before. He's more explosive. He's in better shape. He really took it seriously that he was going to be taking the job. And like you said, they were giving him power runs into a stacked box. And we've heard from our Tape Don't Lie friends, we've heard all over that Zamir White is an outside zone runner. That was one of the things that was so uplifting about Luke Getsy coming over, was that he was going to be using Zamir White in outside zone runs. And what did they not do? The fumble that he had, that was an outside zone read, and it worked until he got the ball punched out. But that's not how they used him, and that was a Josh Jacobs. That's what Josh Jacobs could do. One cut, power running, and Zamir White is better trying to get the edge, and they didn't seem to do a lot of that. All right, my candidate to walk the plank is of course Gardner Minshew. I don't know. I don't. We all saw the performance on the field. He wasn't terrible in the passing game. He was fairly accurate. He just didn't cut down on the turnover worthy plays. That was one of the things going into the decision making, was that we knew that Gardner Minshew was going to turn the ball over. We knew it was going to happen, and it exactly happened. Maybe if you take away the fumble where he threw the ball backwards, things are different with this team. Maybe if you take away the interception, things are different with the result of this game. But ultimately, those are on Gardner Minshew. He didn't do a lot with the opportunity that we feel like he was presented. And he, we had things to talk about on defense. Robert Spillane with 10 total tackles and a tackle for loss. Christian Wilkins looked good. Max Crosby had a sack and a tackle for loss. And every time the Chargers tried to run the ball in the first 3 quarters, there's Max bringing down the guy or Wilkins. Like they played really, really well on defense. The Chargers didn't get anything going, and that's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about how well this defense played. It's just they couldn't sustain it through 4 quarters because the offense couldn't move the ball. So our slayers of the week should be on the defensive side, but they're not. It's the little gems that we got on the offensive side. We should be just like hammering how good this defense is. But they gave up 22 points. It wasn't a 22-point game performance, but ultimately that's how many we gave up. Do you have a candidate for walking the plank, Raph? Who are you going to throw off the ship?
I will get like the candidate because I just got like the perfect, which is Look Getsy. I mean, during for that time, I mean, Look Getsy, it became like this playbook. It's probably not like the quietest and not like the greatest one because I know he used like the two tight ends for the Chicago Bears, but I think because the offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, it didn't get really right to get used to the tight end over Khalil Mack. I mean, that's who's really screwed it up right now. But it doesn't really fit it at all because he just embodies very well. But I know that Luke Getsy, he needs to walk the plank because the offensive calls is not like very quiet enough to stop the defense, to run defense on the Chargers. I mean, there's gonna be like threw it like an over, like the same old things like that, but it didn't quite exactly the same how to be like very explosive.
Yeah, I like that call. Luke Getsy, get off this ship. All right. Real quickly, I want to tell everybody if you are watching this over on YouTube and you're not subscribed to the Undroppables yet, please do so. We are slowly trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, and I'm trying to look up real quick where we're at. We're pretty close. We are currently at 972, so we need 28 subscribers. So if you're already subscribed, send this video link to your friends. Let's get to that 1,000. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the button hit the bell so that you can get notified. The Uncovered channel we're almost to the point where we're onboarding every single NFL team. I know we've added the Cowboys recently. The Jacksonville Jaguars show is going pretty strong. The Broncos and Seahawks just did a really cool collab over the weekend, getting ready for that game. As soon as we start playing, the Raiders start playing against teams that have content creators. So the Broncos, the Chiefs, some of the Jaguars later on in the season, the Saints. We're gonna have like head-to-head shows. What's up, Vic in Sacramento? So get this channel, get the Undroppables channel out to everybody that you know, and let's get those subscribers up to 1,000. We are just short. Now it is time for everybody's favorite segment. We're going to close this out. I don't have any slides because the topic was kind of difficult to think of slides from. And know like which order you were going to talk about them in and stuff like that. So let's hear what Raiderdamus has to say. It's time for the Raiderdamus Hall of Shade, everybody. All right.
Okay. Well, here I go. At one point or another in your life, perhaps you have wandered into a room in your home and immediately forgotten why you went in there. Perhaps you have taken a test at school and forgotten all the material the moment the test was handed out. Maybe your mind went blank while you were speaking to an attractive member of the opposite sex, or perhaps the same sex. There are many situations in life in which a person can, as the kids say, go full head ass. But there is only one situation where head assery plagues every single football team, and that's when they play the Kansas City Chiefs. The amount of games during which opposing teams completely lose the plot against Kansas City is truly astounding. We know the Chiefs are talented and they're well coached. We know the refs will do anything to help them win, and we know the full weight of the NFL's PR machine is behind them because Taylor Swift is on TV during their broadcasts. But so much of their success still relies on teams absolutely shitting the bed against them. And that's why you, opponents of the Chiefs, are this week's inductees into the Raiderdamus Hall of Shade. The list of Chiefs victims is a long one. The 49ers have had 2 shots at KC in the Super Bowl. The first time, Jimmy G overthrew a wide-open receiver by 5 yards on a potential game-winning touchdown. The second time, last year, San Francisco's defense smothered KC until Dre Greenlaw suffered an untimely injury from which he still has yet to return, and KC's offense came to life after that as they won in overtime. Buffalo had the 2021 AFC Championship won, but they forgot to cover Tyreek Hill as the Chiefs only needed 13 seconds to score a game-tying touchdown. Philadelphia had a big halftime lead against KC in the Super Bowl, but promptly forgot how to play football when the third quarter began. The Ravens, who are the team most considered the second best in the AFC, have lost to KC twice in a row now. Lamar Jackson missed some easy throws in the last drive of the game last week to give KC the win. That clanging sound you heard just now was Baltimore's Super Bowl window with Lamar Jackson closing up. It's a familiar sound. We heard it with Buffalo last season, just in the same way that Jim Kelly's Bills team heard it in 1994. It's the sound the team hears when it has had plenty of chances to succeed and exhausted them all with nothing to show for it. The Bengals, at least, were able to overcome KC once, but then they couldn't beat the Rams for whatever reason. Judging by Week 1's dismal performance against the Pats, Cincy themselves may be on the trash heap. There's one man who was able to overcome the poison that KC casts on their enemies, and that is future Raiders owner Tom Brady. Brady actually caused KC to go full head-ass themselves when Dee Ford jumped offside, sending the Pats to yet another Super Bowl. Brady later on dragged a Tampa Bay squad which had little success before or after him to the Super Bowl, and then beat the dog shit out of the Chiefs. Brady's Pats made the greatest show on turf Rams look pedestrian. He made Donovan McNabb throw up on the field. He made the Seahawks pass on the 1-yard line. He made a Sean McCoy offense score 3 points in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady is impervious to your curse, for he is the one who knocks. The Chiefs right now are achieving the greatest and the highest level of victory, which is this. It is not enough that I succeed. Everyone else must fail. We have seen this before, the 1980s Niners and also the aforementioned Pats dynasty. There is no reason to expect that the Chiefs will suddenly get worse anytime soon. But it is fair to ask, why can't anyone beat them? Why does even the strongest competition trip over their own dicks whenever they play KC? Why must we, as football fans, watch the same movie over and over again and again? The Chiefs get everyone's best shot, but so far it hasn't mattered. Nobody is good enough. The league has 8 years of film on Andy Reid with the Chiefs, and still nobody can stop a slant over the middle or a tight end dig. These are, of course, the exact same observations I had about the Patriots during their reign of terror. That simple fact that this is the same shit we've always seen tells me that it's all about coaching. I've said that casual observers judge every team by their quarterback and head coach, and they do that because it's accurate. Nobody could consistently beat Bill Walsh and Joe Montana, or Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, and now nobody can beat Reid and Mahomes. Watching greatness that you despise with every fiber of your being is one of the most disheartening things a human being can experience. It makes watching sports not fun. It causes stress and anger. These aren't college kids out there playing for an education. These are professionals, athletes, who should, once in a while, be able to rise to the occasion and bring down that evil empire. But they don't. They can't. And it makes me sick. So fuck you, opponents of the Chiefs. You're the boot stomping on my face forever, making me accept what I hate as inevitable. Roll Tide! That's all I got to say about that.
Fuck you, opponents of the Chiefs, except for the Raiders, of course. But also, fuck you, Raiders.
Well, the Raiders have won against the Chiefs 4 times in the last 10 years. They're as bad as anybody.
Right. If you want more Raiderdamus, go to the Raider Ramble. Except don't do that right now, because apparently the site is crashed. And I read the foretelling on Friday, and there were some really, really great lines, and I wanted to read them on the show, promoting your great work, and I can't because it won't show up.
There will be more great lines next week as well. I promise you that.
Yeah. So Raider Ramble, go to that and read Raiderdamus every Friday. It's fantastic stuff. That's going to do it for us. Again, like, subscribe, share the video around, hit the bell so you get notified. Watch the other content, because we got some good people putting in a lot of really hard work, and we appreciate all of you. Yeah, that's it. I
want to say one thing before we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I might take a minute to say this. When we think about the great defenses in NFL history, we think of the 1970s Vikings, or the Purple People Eaters. We think of the Steel Curtain of the 1970s Steelers. We think of the 85 Bears. We think of the 2000 Ravens. But statistically, the best NFL defense that has ever existed was the 1990 Philadelphia Eagles. They had Reggie Brown and Reggie White and a whole bunch of Jerome Brown and Reggie White and a score of other really, really good players. Unfortunately, they got waxed in the playoffs because Randall Cunningham got hurt in week 1 of that season, and Jim McMahon himself took over at quarterback. And the offense basically didn't move the ball very well. They didn't have a super good record, even though they have the best defense the NFL has ever seen. defenses don't stay good forever. And am concerned and worried that the Raiders are going to waste one of the best defenses in the NFL right now with a non-functional offense. The Raiders have a few weeks, maybe till midseason, to get this offense right again. I think they can. I think the play calling was okay. I think the execution of the plays was abysmal. That's something that can be fixed. I don't necessarily have an issue with a lot of the plays that Luke Getsy called. I think mostly it was all right. I would like to see them obviously attack downfield more often, but a game plan is game plan. They don't have a long time with this offense. Patrick Graham is going to be a head coach somewhere, probably next year. They don't have a lot of time with one of the better defenses in the NFL unless they get some super hotshot DC to come in, which I find unlikely because it's the Raiders. They need to jump on this now. They need to get good now. They need to start winning now. They don't have time to waste. The Eagles didn't, and they didn't win the Super Bowl until a couple of years ago. So they need to get their asses in gear, is what I'm saying.
And, to be fair, it is just week 1. There are still 16 games left to play. A lot can happen. It's a marathon. It's a half marathon, not a sprint. There's still time to get it together. That's one of the things that we saw in the preseason was they were throwing deep to Trey Tucker. We didn't see any of that in this game. So maybe that was a scheme issue. Maybe Gardner just didn't have enough time. Maybe they were just trying to protect him, get rid of the ball quickly because of Mack and Bosa. And as you said, after this Ravens game, there are a ton of teams out there who expected a little bit more than what they got in week 1. And so there's still a little bit of sliver of hope in my heart that the Raiders are one of those teams where this week 1 is not going to be the story for the rest of the season. So we will be back with you next week to discuss the Ravens game. There is a chance that we could do some kind of preview on Sunday afternoon, maybe a live look-in or something like that. But keep your eyes on this space, and we'll see you next time. And as every week, fuck the Broncos.
Fuck the Chiefs.
Fuck the Chargers.
There you go.